Hi there and welcome to Trauma Therapy and Why. The introduction into the video you're about to or hopefully watch is a segment in a time of my life suffering trauma and then dealing with trauma beginning in childhood all the way into adulthood. The life segments are broken down part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, etc., with part 1 beginning in my earliest memory in childhood, suffering trauma events, and then going through life with trauma to where I suffered PTSD at 12. At the end of certain segment videos, I will have a reference page with evidence-based research and neuroscience and their findings on the brain of trauma that leads to destructive behaviors. Hopefully you'll gain insight into yourself or maybe someone you know suffering trauma. If you haven't, please go over to my welcome video, which gives a deeper understanding of who I am, why I'm doing this, and the horrible quality of my videos. I'm trying to keep it raw, not only because A, I don't know what I'm doing, but also B, there's nothing clear or glamour about trauma and living life in trauma. So please subscribe, like or dislike, let me know what I can do to improve or how I'm doing with these videos. I look forward to your subscriptions and your comments. Hopefully you enjoy the video and continue into the other series. Thank you and have a good day or night. Greetings and welcome to part 7. And let me take a moment to, I guess it would be called insert a plug. If you haven't so far, uh, go back or after this or if, whenever you like, check out my welcome video, which explains the poor quality, the reason for the poor quality, um, including me trying to learn how to do all this, which I believe I've come pretty far. So I apologize for those that have watched, and it's been confusing with the reference pop-ups. That's been a nightmare for me to learn and very time consuming. So thank you, and I hope you're learning. I hope you're getting some concept, and I hope you're understanding that you're not the only one, and there is help out there with trauma therapy. So this is part 7. I guess I should have opened with that. Where I left off was the process of middle school. After suffering PTSD in the 5th grade at the age of 12, and then the traumatic experiences from actually pre-birth, and then what I don't remember going on in the household. I know my mom was getting beat, and my brother had shared with me recently that while I mean he was traumatized so bad he don't remember his childhood or his adolescence. It's really a blank to him, which is just really horrible. But he turned out to be an awesome person, awesome man of God. But he told me when my mom was pregnant with me, Dad showed up and they got into it. He had punched her in the stomach, and she became really drowsy and started acting weird after that. And he believes she was drugged with something, which I find hard to believe because my dad was so anti-drug. It was, I mean, odd because he was a horrible alcoholic, drinking and driving and beating his family up, but was against drugs. I guess all of us have morals. It's better to have some than none, I guess. So I've really suffered a lot, and one of the which are called adverse childhood effects, abbreviated ACEs, and I'm going to attempt to have the pop up of this list at the end. But basically, they come in forms of physical abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse, which I had emotional and sexual abuse. Forms of neglect, emotional and physical, which I didn't have the physical, but I had the emotional. And then any form of household dysfunction, and that would be any family member having a mental illness, a loved one that's incarcerated can be extremely stressful. Uh, Mother treated with violence had that. Witnessing substance abuse had that, witnessed that. And then divorce. My parents separated for, I guess it was, yeah, it was under a year, maybe a year, I don't know, something like that. If not a year, it was close to a year. So I'm pretty high on the chart. And then suffering the PTSD. Let me read the symptoms. Uh, Forgive me as I pull it up here. The other computer's not working, which I'm not really. Well, let me do it by memory. What I was starting to show, I was really becoming angry and really treated those in the neighborhood that were younger than me. I was showing signs of external anger. I was becoming really bossy. And those older than me, I became very nervous. And long hair was very popular in the 70s. And if they had long hair, I correlated that with drug addiction. They were drug users. My brother Mike had extremely long hair. And my dad swore there was no way he was going. That's why I had the flat top, Marine Corps flat top. I was nervous around people with long hair, which in my neighborhood there was my friend's older brother who was really super cool. Treated us kids with kindness, and his brother. I mean, he picked on his younger brother, my friend, which was funny. But he had long hair, and you know, Microsoft Word. Oh, what did I do? Anyway, I was really starting to show signs of PTSD. In school, I was not able to concentrate. And one of the signs of PTSD, uh, you lose any or all forms of positive reinforcement. Like, for example, sixth grade, I had mentioned I love science. And there was a science fair, and me and a classmate, we did a project together and we submitted. I mean, we worked hard on it. We submitted it in the science fair and we tied for third. And this is a great example. I remember thinking, they only did this out of pity for me. I had no self accomplishment. And my teacher, who was really a great teacher, um, was really trying to boost me up in class because I showed no signs of enthusiasm. That all that hard effort paid off. And I could not, I mean, anything that was really a self accomplishment became a negative. Oh, I don't deserve this, or they're just giving me this out of pity, etc., etc. And sad, I don't know if they had therapy back then, but my mom was under so much stress, and she really didn't put forth the effort. And later in life, I found out she was horribly abused as a child. And my dad, which I found out years to come as an adult, he he went through a very rough childhood up in New York in the early days. It was rough, but so it becomes a generational curse when there's no therapy, when it's undiagnosed. It just exasperates and it just gets worse, and it was horrible for me. But the one corner on the street, the family that lived on the corner that I had mentioned, ended part six with, which I won't say their name. Um, they were mafia. and we didn't know. Well, I didn't know till later, and my dad didn't know till later. But his sons, one was in prison. The oldest one was in prison. One was about 3 years older than me. One was my age, and one was younger. By goodness, 3 years. And the youngest one, when he was in second, I mean, he was shaven in the third grade. He had hair on his chest. I mean, they were just overly developed. They were a combination of Sicilian and Puerto Rican. And man, what a combination of genes. And in second grade, he punched the teacher. I wasn't there, but it went around the school and he got expelled. He had punched the teacher, a male, and knocked him out cold. And they broke in everybody's house in the neighborhood. They were breaking in houses and cars and stealing. They were beating up all the kids, but me in our house. And come to find out, when they had brought me to the new house, my mom was sharing with me. She says the street's full of kids, and only one of them helped your dad and I unload the U-Haul. And he was so kind and so helpful, and he was really big and strong. And she says, so I went in, and while they were unloading the U-Haul, I made him a batch of cookies. And when I brought him the plate, he started crying. And he took the plate and he ran home. And she goes, I find that odd. So that family, all the kids took a liking to me, and they took a liking to my parents. And then a few years down the road, him and I became very close. He had shared with me. He goes, no other parent has ever invited me into their house, and especially no one's ever made me cookies before. And he said, for that is why we never picked on you or broke into your house. Silver linings when you're kind and you show love. That was my mom. My dad treated people, when they worked hard and they were helping them, he was very grateful to them. So that had silver linings to it, and that story's funny, and it would continue in the years to come. My brother Mike started working with the guy that had a yard maintenance company, and from the 7th grade and 8th grade, I would work with them in the summer doing yards. And my parents were trying to teach me responsibility, so they opened up my first bank account. I didn't care. And they were explaining to me about savings and gaining interest and saving money for the future. I didn't care at all. None. I mean, M1 didn't even go in one year to go out the other. I just ignored it. My brother Bill wanted to become a pastor, so he went off to Bible college there in Florida. And my dad didn't want none of that. He told him, if you become a minister, I don't want to hear that J word or G word in my GD house, never to be spoken. I mean, just really battered him. But he went through with it, and he became a minister. And actually, when he was in California, he was really hooked on PCP and angel dust while he was in the Air Force. And while he was tripping, long story short, he had this vision that Jesus was calling him, and it really freaked his high out. So he had called our aunt and uncle in Anaheim, California. They invited him down. He told them, I really need help. He went to visit them. They were good Christians. They walked the walk, and they talked the walk. And they took him to a revivalry that was going on. And in the middle of the revival, he walked up to the stage and gave his life to Christ, and his drug addiction stopped. He was really into playing golf, and man, he was horrible. Because in the first 2 weeks, what little bit he taught me, I was beating him, and he would laugh at that. So I really started liking golf, and my dad saw my interest in golf, so he hired a golf pro. And I started taking lessons, and I became a really good golfer. And one of my neighbor, one of the younger kids that I treated like crap, and I remember we were playing, me, him, and another kid, and I was treating him like crap. And his grandfather walked out who lived with them and says, "Oh, I see the boss is back," and walked away. And his name was Tommy. And I said, "Tommy, what's that all about?" And he goes, "The way you boss us around all the time." And that really hurt me. I had no idea I was like that. And I swore I was going to start treating them and others different. I mean, when I didn't even know I was doing it. I was that clueless to my external anger, which is a sign of PTSD. Another sign is internal anger. My dad's theory is when all fails, read directions. And whenever he would fix something or put something together, he would never read directions. And he used curse words like an artist using oil paints, like it says in that movie, The Christmas Story. Boy, that was my dad. And so I never learned to read directions. I never learned coping skills. The only coping skill I learned was the Marine Corps. If he can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. Marine Corps, and hand-to-hand combat, maiming or lethal. That was my only coping skills. And to act with enthusiasm when I'm not in the game. So whenever my internal anger was whenever I would go to do a project or play board games or play cards, learn how to do something, I would get extremely frustrated at the get-go. And I remember that going back to the first grade. I would throw board games. I would quit in the middle of something. I would have it, as they call it for kids, temper tantrums. And then I'd go off and I would sulk in the corner. I would just be completely, um, what, oh goodness, depleted of energy, just exhausted. Boy, hard words for me. Just completely exhausted, like after doing CrossFit. And, but the only time that I really learned to focus was golf. For some reason, I just really took into that. And my golf game really improved. And school during classes that I didn't like, I never paid attention, which anxiety is a form of PTSD. That's a very close cousin, which those signs of anxiety. ADHD, I had no discipline to put forth the focus. If I had a bad feeling about a teacher, like when they were teaching nouns and verbs, if I had a belief I would never, this means nothing to me or in life, I mean, I couldn't even tell. Well, I do know what an adjective is now. That's only because of watching TV, The Big Bang Theory. So thanks to The Big Bang Theory, I know verbs, nouns, and adjectives. But to pick them out in a sentence, I couldn't do it. I just had no interest. And I shared the story about math. But I was really, and then doing the yard maintenance, I was really a good worker. I really loved hard work. I love to get dirty. I love to sweat. Anywho, so my brother Bill, he ends up moving to Miami and he becomes associate pastor at a church down there when I'm in the 8th grade. And he was getting into working out. The movie with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, The Hulk, was the #1 series. And I really wanted to start working out, and I would do little workout routines with my brother. And I really felt great working out. And one thing that I will never forget is whenever I would go to his church, being the associate pastor, he would go there at night to do odds and ends for the office. And service on Sunday, I felt this overwhelming peace that I didn't have. And I wasn't nervous around anybody at all, no matter adult, teenager, child, male, female, stranger, non-stranger. I was just really at peace. And it really became apparent when my mom would come to get me or my brother would go and drop me off. I would feel the tension in the house and what's known as eggshells and the elephant in the living room. And I really started to feel that. And my brother Bill would share with me, "Johnny, I'm sorry, I can't stay the pressure." And he still apologizes to this day. He feels so bad about dropping me off there. Um, hmm. So in the eighth grade, my parents, there's this what's called the JGA. I don't know if it still exists, the Junior Golf Association for adolescents and children to play in golf tournaments, and it goes by age group. And my game was on. I would outdrive everybody, but I could never play on tee off and on the last hole. We would only play 9 holes. When there was a crowd, I had this overwhelming sensation of shame that people were watching me and just picking me apart. Oh, look at those chicken legs. Oh, look at how skinny his arms are. Oh, look at how white he is. Just horrible. And my concentration would blow. I would miss the ball on tee off, or I would dub it, or it would roll over there or roll over there. But once I got away from them, man, my balls were just right on. I remember one tournament on the last hole, my ball landed in a sand trap, and panic is another form of PTSD. And there was a bunch of parents and kids and people around the last hole watching, and it took me 17 shots to get out. And I sounded like my dad. I wasn't using curse words, but dang it, darn it, I suck. Darn it, man. I mean, I wasn't even coming close to the ball. Sand going everywhere. Ball, if it would move, it would roll back, put me deeper into sand. Just really horrible. And I was in the league. And my mom felt so bad for me. And I really had no one to really pull me aside and teach me. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me, but a child and an adolescent needs that. They need answers, because man, all this came with me into adulthood. So the working out continued, and I really started taking a liking to football, and I had the speed, and we would always play street football, or we would play tackle football at the church in the field. And I was just really good and really fast. And I wanted to play football. Man, I really did. I wanted to go out there and just score touchdowns. I wanted to be, who was the, oh, I was a big Oakland Raider fan. I wanted to be like Marcus Allen. And then I really liked John Riggins of the Redskins, the fullback. He would just plow people over. And I really liked his force. And I wanted just to hit people out there. But I was so I think I was going into the ninth grade, I was 110 pounds. Man, and that's because I was working out and I increased my eating. My mom took me to a local gym to buy protein powder. And the guy behind the counter said, start feeding him a lot of potatoes, eat a lot of bananas, do a lot of running. Take this protein powder after you work out, before you go to bed. And I remember that stuff was horrible back then. There was no flavor in anything. Flavor didn't exist but in candy, which continued as part of my intake. So going into the ninth grade, the kids that I knew from middle school, zones changed. And my friend Jimmy, the bully who beat up bullies, was going to one high school. I was going to another. And the other ones were going to another. So there was my clique that I hung out with, which I didn't explain, was like Miami ended up becoming very culturally diverse. And we had one, I'm not going to say his name, but we nicknamed him Barn Smell because his hair was never combed. He really didn't, he smelled like he didn't take a shower. One of them was really, really smart. One of them was really goofy. Then we had the bully that beat up bullies. Then there was me. I don't know how to describe me. But I ended up getting into a fight in the eighth grade. The kid that took me under his wings that I looked up to, he started boxing and he started training me to box. And my parents had bought me a speed bag. And I got really good on the speed bag. And I remembered this big kid, I had bumped into someone. And I didn't say excuse me or anything. So his friend was one of the bullies. and he came after me, and he took a swing, and I had jumped to the left, and I jabbed him and got him right in the jaw. I mean, it just happened instantly. Nothing that my dad had taught me to do. Thank goodness for that. You know, the throat, the nose, the I forget what this is called in the stomach, or the bone behind the ear. I used the boxing move, and a teacher was right there and broke it up. No, I punched him in the nose. I jabbed him in the nose because he started bleeding. Blood started coming out. I did get him in the nose. My dad had taught me if I wanted to kill someone, go up. Well, I'm not going to get into it. Everybody thought I was this badass after that, and I really didn't. I really felt guilty. Man, I did not. And then the first fight I got into was when I was in the second grade. One of my friends, I was at his house playing. Here's how I am being conflicted with violence and my mom teaching me to love and my dad teaching me to be an ass, to be violent. And we got into it, and he had a bunch of family over, and his family started telling him, let's say his name is Ricky, was going, Ricky, kick his ass, Ricky, kick his ass. So he started pushing me, and I said, oh, I'm going to go home. And I remember putting my head down because I felt really bad that parents were really adults were after me. So I was walking through his yard, and he's following me, and he's antagonizing me. Come on, chicken, and his family, they're following him. And so I crossed the street. They're right behind me. And he came up behind me and he started pushing me on the back, going, fight me, fight me, fight me. And the adults are going, kick his ass, kick his ass. Man, and I remember that to a certain point I could take it. I remember just going blank and turning around. And the next thing I knew, I had him on the ground and I was on top of him and I was slamming his head into the ground. And the adults pulled me off and they just started um, um, how can you do that? I don't know the word for it. Sorry, I just got done working out and blood doesn't go to my brain after I work out. They just started belittling me. Why would you do that? You got a problem. Look at that. You're about to kill him. You're about to hurt him. He didn't do anything. You know, people turn a blind eye. And yeah, trust me, I have. So I don't mean that I'm better. And I felt horrible, man. I remember I started crying and I walked home. It really scared me that I don't remember. I don't even remember how I got the kid on the ground. And I was really conflicted because I know that I did the right thing to stand up for myself once he put his hands on me, which my dad had also trained me. Uh, don't move until you see one of their shoulders moving. That's a sign that they're throwing. And with my mom telling me to love and don't be like my father, that's not the way to handle things. Um, so when I got into that fight in eighth grade, and then I was suspended. I remember this. My mom was away in California, and it was just me and my dad, and I got suspended. And they were going to mail a copy of the report to my dad, and they gave me a report. Boy, and I thought he was going to whoop my rear or beat me like he did my brothers, and I was terrified of him coming home. And the first thing, my dad had a rule: when he gets home, no one talks to him for the first hour until he had a couple of Seagram 7s in him, which he called a highball. And then when we would go camping, he would call it his snake bite medicine. And I was just terrified. So I waited and waited. Man, and the more I waited, the more he drank. And he really became a different person when he drank. And I never got along with him. I don't remember any conversations that didn't pertain to the Marine Corps or his flying. And when I told him, he said, did you defend yourself? And I said, yes. He wanted to throw. And he goes, good boy. And I said, but I got suspended from school. He says, I don't care. You did the right thing. He was going to put his hands on you. And he said, I taught you well. And I didn't dare tell him, no, it's not what you taught me. It's what my friend next door, 2 houses down, taught me. But he was proud of me, and that really, I was like, man, what in the world is going? When I think I'm going to get in trouble, I don't. And when I don't think I get in trouble, I get in trouble, which also leads to later in life. So now 8th grade is over, middle school's over. I'm going to a new school, high school at that. And that is it for this segment. I thank you for joining. I thank you for hanging in there. And hopefully I'm able to, which I will get the slides up. I don't probably take me hours like the other ones. Please read the slides and leave your comments. I look forward to your comments. Thank you and have a great day.